weeks after the Veterans Affairs scandal broke, the chairman of the House and Senate Veterans Affairs committees have unveiled their bipartisan plan authorizing $17 billion to help improve the system. Joining me now for a first on Fox Business interview in the House Committee on Veterans Affairs Chairman Jeff Miller. Chairman Miller, good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
First, let's talk about the likelihood of this passage. How likely is it that this bill passes by the end of the week ahead of the Congress's one-month recess?
Well, our backstop was the recess date. Bernie Sanders and I both agreed that we would meet that deadline, and the House will vote on this bill tomorrow. The Senate will take it up shortly thereafter and send it to the President.
How do you make the case that after all of the missteps that have occurred at the VA, that more money is needed to fix the problem when, in fact, the money that they had has failed?
It's hard to make that case. In fact, I've said if money solved the issue, this would have been solved a long time ago. But what this bill actually does is takes $10 billion and puts it into a choice program to allow veterans to go outside of the VA for their care if they meet certain metrics. There is $5 billion that's in the bill because VA said they needed additional space and some additional workers, but we fenced it off to make sure that they couldn't go out and inflate the bureaucracy out there as they have done in the past. The $5 billion is offset with current VA funds. The only mandatory spending that's in there right now is, in fact, the $10 billion for emergency mandatory for the choice portion of the bill.
I see. What are the biggest problems at the VA? How did we get here?
Well, I can tell you that there is a lack of accountability. Access is very difficult for veterans, and there's a culture within VA that is going to be very hard to disrupt or to break. No piece of legislation will, in fact, instill morality or a culture of doing the right thing. I said the other day in a hearing that the veteran is important. The VA is no longer the sacred cow that is thought it has been over the past years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The American people agree with that. So go through the bill, including the $10 billion in emergency spending to make it easier for the vets who can't get prompt appointments with VA doctors. Why is that so critical?
Well, it's very important because, as everybody now knows, because of the oversight in the April 9th hearing, books were being cooked, people were lying and corrupting the system. Veterans were on waiting lists a whole lot longer than 14 days, some of them 6 or 8 months. This will give the veteran the choice. They can either wait in line if they choose to go to VA or get the health care at a local provider. It's good for two reasons. The veteran gets their health care very quickly, and the local providers have people coming through their facilities. Let me tell you something else that's important about this bill too, Maria, is the fact that there's going to be a top-to-bottom study of VA to see how the physicians work. Do they see enough patients? Are the hours that they see patients sufficient to be able to handle the load? That's where I have a disagreement with Chairman Sanders. He said we need to hire more people. I say the people that are currently in the system need to operate much more efficiently.
Now, only veterans who are enrolled in the VA care as of August 1st or live at least 40 miles away would be eligible to get the outside care of this, right?
No, and also we put a provision in there to allow returning Afghanistan veterans as well to participate, but we needed to limit that number because the CBO score was wildly out of line. If you remember, originally it was about a $40 billion number that we were talking with, and so by limiting the number of people to those that are currently in the system and returning veterans, we're better able to decide how much money to fund this program with.
Now, clearly everyone wants the funding for veterans' needs as a high priority, but this is a high cost. What do you say about the price tag here?
Well, the cost of going to war is very high. Some people pay it with their lives. The taxpayers of the United States are willing to pay the money necessary to provide the benefits that our veterans have earned. But what they want to make sure is that there is accountability within the VA. And the fact is there has not been for many, many years. We've given them in this bill the ability to fire top supervisors with a very limited window of appeal, and they lose their money, their salary right off the bat, and only get that salary back if that firing is reversed.
So is it fair to say this may very well be one of the few bills that may be signed by the president and one of the few bills, significant bills signed into law this year?
Well, interestingly enough, I would almost bet you that if you looked at the bills the president has signed out of any of the committees, our committee has probably had more signed than any other.
All right, Congressman, we'll be watching. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Chairman Jeff Miller. Still ahead on the opening bell.